In news this week, Christian women take the fight to ISIS. North Korea allows limited church worker visits. And Adventist hospital surgeons work with robots.
This is InFocus Christian News and Current Affairs.
Hello, welcome to Record in Focus. It's great to have you with us.
On today's programme, we'll wrap up the year's political developments with the Australian Christian Lobby. Sue Rad will be in with some helpful food and nutrition tips. And today, Kent, you'll be interviewing ADRA's CEO, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Muck Webster is coming in to talk about those terms you've probably heard in the media from time to time. Millennium Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goals. Well, what does it all mean for the charities you support? And what does it mean for the world's poor? But enough from me. Let's get cracking with the news, shall we?
Thanks, Kent. As military efforts ramp up against the Islamic State terror group, serious Christians are also doing their part. A new battalion of Christian women fighters has joined the fight, recently participating with an alliance that won back the town of Al-Hol. The women are from the Syriac churches, which are both Catholic and Orthodox. So far, the battalion has graduated 50 fighters from their training program. The Holy Trinity Anglican Church at Lara, north of Geelong, was the venue for last week's commemoration service for the most decorated military chaplain of World War I. The Reverend Ernest Dexter fought in the Boer War and then served as a chaplain during the First World War, both on the Western Front and at Gallipoli, where he was one of the first men ashore and one of the last to leave. Despite not being a combatant, Reverend Dexter was wounded 6 times during the war. He was known for putting himself at risk in order to visit frontline troops. This year marks 100 years since the end of the Gallipoli campaign. The world's most repressive country, North Korea, has opened the door to religious freedom, but only slightly. From next year, Catholic priests from South Korea will be able to travel to their northern neighbour in order to conduct worship for holy days on the church calendar. According to the Japan Times, there are no priests living in North Korea, and just one tightly controlled Catholic church building in the capital, Pyongyang. Baptism and confession are among the religious practices that are banned. It remains to be seen how much leeway the visiting priests will be allowed in conducting Mass. As concern over Islamist terror attacks is rising and religious tensions are increasing, faith leaders in Berlin are seeking a unified response.
Es war nicht so leicht zu erreichen, aber wir haben es erreicht. Und die wurde dann ein Maßstab für mich. Wenn man etwas wirklich will, ringt man dafür.
The House of One is the shared vision of Jews, Christians and Muslims in Germany, a place of prayer in Berlin. The plan is for a single entrance to a building containing 3 separate worship spaces, one for each of the major Abrahamic religions.
Es ist nicht nur One für Berlin, sondern von hier, gerade weil es eine multikulturelle Stadt ist, wird sich das verbreiten in verschiedenen Ländern der Welt.
Adventist health leaders in Australia and New Zealand are counting their blessings at the conclusion of a successful year, reaching out to the community with a message of holistic living. During 2015, 75 churches held complete health improvement or CHIP programs, with more than 1,000 Aussies and Kiwis participating. The CHIP concept continues to attract interest elsewhere, with training events being held in parts of Asia and Africa. Next year will see a renewed focus on mental health, with community-based depression recovery programs beginning to be offered by trained facilitators. Students around the world are packing up their books for the Christmas holidays, with some celebrating the completion of their studies. Avondale College of Higher Education on New South Wales Central Coast saw a record 361 students graduate this year. For the first time, the graduands received testamers carrying 2 logos, Avondale's and Charles Sturt Universities. The partnership with Charles Sturt gives Avondale, a Seventh-day Adventist institution, support through mentoring, as well as extra credibility for students' qualifications. It's hoped the relationship with Charles Sturt will assist Avondale in achieving its long-time dream of full university status in its own right. Users of the world's most popular Bible app have now downloaded it 200 million times. YouVersion, which is available free on both Apple and Android platforms, is opened 112 times every second around the world. Many online Bibles allow users the option of changing versions or even languages, as well as accessing audio Bibles and study notes. And the linking of Bible software with social media can be powerful, with 4 Bible verses being shared every second from the YouVersion app alone. 2015's most popular verse to share? Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight.
Putting its motto, Christianity in Action, into practice, Sydney Adventist Hospital is leading the way with innovative treatments. According to Channel 9 News, surgeons at the hospital are seeing successful outcomes from their use of a Mako robot in performing delicate surgeries.
The robot sets those virtual boundaries to make sure that the plan is executed properly.
Doctors say the use of robotic technology in surgery is more precise and can lead to more consistently positive patient outcomes. And finally, many people see the performance of Handels Messiah as an important part of their Christmas. But according to faithreal.com, a group of high school students wondered how monks who had taken a vow of silence could participate in the celebration. Here was their answer.
Hi, welcome back. And now joining us from Canberra is the Australian Christian Lobby's Martin Isles. How are you, Martin?
Really well, thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Now, Martin, this is our last In Focus for the year. It's been a big year in politics, hasn't it?
Yeah, look, it has, Kent. I mean, I'm not quite sure where to start if I want to get a summary of issues going. But I think, honestly, the biggest achievement this year, one of the biggest achievements this year, certainly got to be refugees. We saw the 12,500 special intake announced, and importantly, geared towards those most in need. So Christians, Yazidis, Mandaeans, those categories, and also from within those groups, women and children, and the government's doing a really good job of implementing that. They've also announced that the standard intake will go up from 13,750 to 18,750 by the 2018-19 budget year. So I think the refugee issue has been a really constructive thing, with the strong border control policies actually backed up and complemented by strong humanitarian policies, and ACL is going to continue to lobby for that and continue to lobby for that intake number to go up. Of course, the other big one has been Tony Abbott's loss of the leadership, and also the locking in of the marriage plebiscite, so a real circuit breaker on the marriage issue, which has been an issue of political lobbyists for a long time. There's been nearly 20 attempts to legislate that in the federal parliament, and finally something to break the circuit, to get the people to vote on it and finally have a say, so that's very exciting too.
Yeah, well, obviously that is going to be one of the major issues going forward, and I guess similarly with the refugee issue, right now we're seeing a lot of angst, between faiths about Islam, in particular in this country. It doesn't look like that's going to be going away in the future, next year, for example.
No, well, I think both of those will be big issues going into the future. Certainly the Islam issue, the ISIL issue, the needs of persecuted minorities and refugees around the world, and of course we've got marriage plebiscite coming up as well, and everyone's going to be preparing for that and thinking about it. I mean, one of the effects of that, of course, is that there's a bit of a pause and sort of some debate on the issue, and finally seeing some discussion of the fact that it isn't a consequenceless change. But the other big thing going forward is probably freedom in general. We've really noticed a big uptick in the number of legal cases against people exercising free speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, belief, all of those categories of things in the law courts, and also in legislation, with some legislation removing religious exemptions like the Victorian adoption, same-sex adoption legislation. So that's a really big issue going forward as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, thanks so much. We really appreciate the contribution that you and your team have made this year, Martin. All the best. You have a blessed Christmas and a really happy New Year.
Yeah, look, same to you, Kent, and all your viewers. It's been really great. Really appreciate the time we've had on air together, and keep up the good work.
Thanks a lot. And now we go to Food in Focus.
Here it is, Sue. This is a 0.5 star product. Funnily enough, it's not going to surprise you, this is probably not the healthiest snack to have, half a health star. But see, what are health stars at all? Why are manufacturers putting health stars on everything now?
Good question, James.
Yeah.
So the Health Star rating is a government-led initiative, both in Australia and New Zealand, to help people choose slightly healthier products within processed foods.
Okay.
And that's the big thing. They do not refer to all foods, including fresh foods, but only within the processed food category. And so they rate them out of 5. Just like, you know, with white goods, you go and buy a fridge or a washing machine and you can get half a star or you can get 3 stars out of 5. So the more stars, the healthier the choice is within that food category.
Oh, now look, it seems pretty simple. You're a mum and you've got a choice for your snack, and you're going to give your kids half a glass of orange juice, 5 stars, versus a 0.5 star chocolate snack. Easy choice, but it gets a little bit confusing. Tell us.
Well, it does, because there are some anomalies. So they provide the rating by using an algorithm and a calculator. So food companies can go to a website, work out the rating in that way. But the rating is based primarily on nutrients. So negatively scoring nutrients would be saturated fat and salt and sugar. And of course, the more nut content or fruit or vegetable content, the more positive a score you will get. But there are some anomalies, such as the orange juice, for example. Because it comes from the whole food, it's given a 5-star rating. And yet, any pure fruit juice will raise your blood sugar level within 10 to 15 minutes.
So the orange is still healthier still?
Absolutely, but the orange doesn't get any stars.
At all?
At all, because the system is devised specifically and only for processed foods. And I think that's one of the absolute limitations. It does not apply to the whole food supply, which it should.
However, it is useful for comparing between.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm holding up here 2 snack bars. There's a mum who's looking for snack bars, or a dad who's hunting for snack bars.
Yes.
And they go and they look at this nice green packaged one, and they look at this nice red packaged one. This one has, 3 stars? This one's 5 stars?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about it.
And the reason for that is, and you should always look at the back at the nutrition information panel, and you will notice if you compare them, the reason the 5-star one got the 5 stars is because it has less added salt, less added sugar, and more dietary fibre. So within the one category, it can be quite useful, but you can't compare, for example, bread and yoghurt. And any amount of stars does not tell you how healthy a product is overall, because you could get 4 stars for something like this, which we all know is not a health food. So fries of any type are not a health food. They're a discretionary food, but because they've got less added salt, less saturated fat, they'll get 4 stars. And the humble potato with its lovely skin on won't get any stars.
Well, folks, I did cheat before the show, so I didn't have to put my glasses on. You can check this in the supermarket aisles yourself. So the 5-star had 2.5 times the fibre.
Yes.
It had 1/3 of the salt, and it's got 3/4 of the sugar, so it's a healthier product.
Yeah. So this is actually helping some manufacturers slightly reformulate their products, because they're all aiming to get more stars. So that's one of the potential benefits.
Okay.
Yeah. But you know, some of the
funnest
limitations.
one was the yogurt.
Oh, yes. As I was going to say, some of the limitations really are that this is a voluntary system thus far. It's a government initiative, but it's voluntary. So products that aren't going to have many stars, aren't going to rate well, won't necessarily have the half a star or the 1 star on them, which is a big problem.
Well, I was stunned when the manufacturer of this beautiful Greek yogurt, natural product, put 1.5 stars on his product.
Because according to the calculator, when you when you enter the data, he's only given 1.5 stars, even though it's a natural product. But this product, just because it's reduced in saturated fat, even though it's got sugar added, scores more highly. It gets 3 stars. So you will find these little anomalies. So you have to use your common sense. You should look at the actual ingredients list and check the nutrition information panel. And remember, most importantly, when you go shopping, shop in the perimeter of the supermarket. Fill your trolley with fresh, natural fruits and vegetable products that are not processed. And when you do venture into those mid-aisles with the processed products, then you could use your star system to find a slightly
in your
healthier
opinion
choice.
as a nutritionist, I'm asking an official formal question here, folks. This 5-star orange juice compared to the orange, how many stars would you give the orange?
Oh, 10.
There you go. That's a simple message. It's a take-home point. Every single week we come back to the same point. Just go on and shop for the natural stuff and just feel good inside. Yeah.
Signs of the Times, a magazine for a world on the brink. And this month in Signs, who were the wise men who travelled miles to celebrate the Saviour's birth? What does Jesus' birth really mean for your life? We examine Jesus' bloodline and his time on earth, how you can enjoy the season's treats without feeling the guilt. All in this month's Signs of the Times. Subscribe to Signs this Christmas and change your life.
Looking back, I can see all those happy memories didn't happen by chance. I wish I knew then what I know now. I should have asked more questions, got more advice. I didn't realise how much you sacrificed. Now I'm a parent. I see everything you did for me. Thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Well, it's a privilege for me to have here in the studio the CEO of ADRA Australia, Muck Webster. How are you, Mark?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, Mark, you're in the hot seat today because I'm here to grill you on the performance of development organisations and aid organisations such as yours over the last few years. I remember back in the year 2000, there was a lot of enthusiasm about, this new millennium we were coming into, and the Christians were really big in that movement, calling for debts to be cancelled for developing countries. Remember the Jubilee movement?
Yes.
Yeah, and what came out of that were these Millennium Development Goals that said by the year 2015, and here we are, we want to halve global poverty. Ambitious?
Certainly ambitious, but I think if you're going to set global goals, they'd better be ambitious. And one of the great successes of the Millennium Development Goals was that they did pull people together and focus attention and resources and action around those things.
But did they halve global poverty?
So, well, the answer to that is yes.
Oh, really?
I mean, that's the simple answer. Global poverty has been halved if you measure it in terms of people living on less than $1.25 a day.
Wow.
That's been achieved. Now, does that mean that it's achieved enough or for everyone? Well, no. And the reality is that some of those gains are under threat because of overuse of the planet's resources.
Oh, okay. So here we are in 2015 when the Millennium Development Goals were to expire. What's the report card for the world's foreign aid budgets and international aid agencies like yourself? What's the report card in terms of global poverty, but what else has or hasn't been achieved?
Sure. So look, it's an overall positive report, but it's mixed. So, for instance, there's been great progress, particularly around education and access to education for girls and boys. Really great progress. Most countries have achieved the goals in that area. Really great progress around health, some of the health outcomes, maternal and child health, and addressing various of the infectious diseases.
HIV/AIDS has really turned around in that 15 years, hasn't it?
That's right. And, you know, that's not just been to do with treatment, but it's been to do with how people see the disease, and it's been about reducing stigma and, you know, improving care. So all of those things have been positive outcomes, but they haven't been universal or global.
Okay. In the last year or so, I've seen a lot of emphasis on fresh water and, you know, WASH programs. They call it. What was it? Water and something?
Water, hygiene and sanitation.
Yeah, that's you. You're the expert. But that goal hasn't been achieved, has it?
No. There's still, you know, work that needs to be done in that space. There's still a lot of people who don't have access to adequate water, and there's certainly a school of thought that says a lot of global and regional and local conflict is being driven by scarcity of resources, and so that's an area that really does need attention.
Okay. So geographically, can you give us an idea of, like, are there particular areas that you could say, wow, these parts of the world have been real standout successes when it comes to achieving the Millennium Development Goals? Other areas perhaps less so. Give us a picture there.
Well, look, just in very general terms, and I am generalising here, Southeast Asia and to some degree South Asia and South and Central America have really moved ahead.
Okay.
And that's partly due to aid and development programs, but it's not only that. You know, these are global goals, and so everyone contributes. Places that have struggled a little bit, particularly Sub-Saharan Africa, places that have a high level of conflict, ongoing conflict.
Syria
really,
right now,
you know,
for example.
For example, Afghanistan, places like that.
Because millions or billions of dollars of aid have been poured into those regions, haven't they?
That's right. And if you've got major conflict happening, really all that aid is doing is preventing things from being worse than they would be. So you know, that aid is valuable and important. It's saving lives. It's keeping people who might otherwise be dying or living in absolutely miserable conditions at a standard where, you know, it's worth being alive. But it's not progressing the country. It's not, you know,
it's
moving
not
it
development,
forward.
is it?
That's correct. It's just relief. It's keeping people, you know, alive and where they are. And we can do better than that.
Yeah. So, so here we are in 2015, and we've seen a new set of goals being developed to replace those Millennium Development Goals. These are called the Sustainable Development Goals. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
And what's the difference? What's the focus? Is this just more of the same, or what?
There's certainly some of the same, but overall it is actually a very different approach.
Okay.
There's a quote from Albert Einstein, you know, quite a number of years ago, that basically said the problems that we face in this world can't be solved by the same sort of thinking that created them.
Fair enough.
That was true then, and it's true now. And the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, as we tend to call them, because it's less of a mouthful.
That's right.
Are an attempt to come up with a different kind of thinking. So what they do is they really contain most of what was in the MDGs, but take it to the next level. So instead of halve global poverty, it's eradicate poverty in all its forms, everywhere.
That is ambitious.
So they've gone completely ambitious with that.
And this is another 15-year time frame,
so another 15-year time frame.
Okay.
And similarly with many of the other Millennium Development Goals, they've been tweaked, they've been improved, they've said, we've achieved this, let's go further. What's new is that there's a renewed focus on peace and good governance and justice and partnership and working together. So that's a new element.
Because, I mean, government corruption has been one area of concern, hasn't it? You throw money at a developing country and it sort of disappears into the pockets of, you know, corrupt officials and things like that.
Yeah, look, and not just government corruption. You've got a lot of very, very large global corporations, larger than many governments these days, who, of course, do everything they can to minimise their taxes, and they minimise those taxes in poor countries where that tax income could put kids in school or improve hospital care for mothers.
Make a lot of profits, and those profits go overseas instead of helping out.
Yeah, so those are changes. And look, the other big change is around the sustainable part.
Of course, sustainability development goals. Okay, yeah.
So there's a recognition that if we continue to use our planet's resources at the rate we do, then much of the good work that has been done on things like poverty and health could go backwards because we live on a finite planet and we need to start thinking about those. So there's a whole bunch of new goals that deal with sustaining life on Earth, in the sea, renewable and sustainable energy sources, and economic development and growth that is sustainable.
It's interesting, isn't it, that it's actually right now some of the poorest countries of the world that are suffering most from this climate change that we're seeing. That's the case, isn't it?
Well, that's correct, and because they're the countries that are least well equipped to deal with it. But we only need to look to our near neighbours, places like Kiribati. If sea levels rise, they're the first ones who are going to be in trouble, and to some degree they're already facing challenges.
Drought in Papua New Guinea.
Right.
I mean, a lush tropical country. It's really hard to understand.
That's part of the global El Nino cycle. But those things are becoming more extreme and more regular, and in some ways more of a problem for countries to deal with.
Okay, so the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, is a Christian organisation. Do you find that your values as an organisation line up with these SDGs? I'm using the lingo now. Yeah.
In general, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when we looked at these SDGs, and we contributed to some extent through regional forums in Australia to giving our voice to what these should be. And when we look at them, they align quite well with the sort of work that we do. What we recognise is that we can't do all 17 of these goals on our own, and no one can. Really, the Sustainable Development Goals are about systems thinking. They're about saying, let's set ourselves some goals as a planet, and we all need to contribute.
Yeah.
And if we're focusing on, let's say it's the water and sanitation one, well, let's make sure we're also thinking about some of the environment ones and the health ones and the governance and justice ones.
Yeah.
We may not be working on them directly, but we'll be talking to people who are, so that as a whole we move forward in the right direction.
There's no point in delivering water to a village if it's polluted water, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if it's going to drain the rivers and
kill the fish.
And kill.
There goes your food source. Yeah.
Precisely.
Wow, a lot of things to think about there. Thanks so much, Mark, for your time. I really appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
We'll take a short break now. We'll be back very soon.
Every week, It Is Written is available to millions of free-to-air viewers throughout Australia, New Zealand, New Guinea and the Pacific. It Is Written's Gary Kent regularly takes viewers to the far corners of the globe to report on new evidence and discoveries that confirm the Bible and Christian beliefs. It Is Written also provides medical care to remote Pacific Island communities. Join Gary Kent each week for It Is Written. See television guides in the It Is Written website for broadcast times. It Is Written with Gary Kent. It really is television that changes lives.
Well, it's hello and goodbye, really. We don't have a lot of time left.
Yes, thanks for your company this week. Don't forget all the InFocus videos are at our website, and we'd love you to stay in touch via social media.
Please do. Until next time, all the best and God bless.
Bye.